All right, and I'm joined tonight, rather this morning. I'm up early for this interview. We've got AlphaJackal, the coach from Team Rival. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing fantastic, and I can sense you're still waking up.
Just a little bit. So there's a bit of a time difference between us. You're over in EU. I'm in A. So I had to get up early before work to get this interview done. So haven't had my morning cup of coffee yet, but we're gonna power through this interview anyway. You're gonna be my energy kickstart for the day, hopefully. So
Fingers crossed that it actually works.
yeah, here's hoping. All right, so. Team Rival, last time we talked to you, I mean, I feel like it was just before the Spring LAN, right?
Was in between the Gauntlet and the Masters LAN, yes.
Yeah, so it was just between the gauntlets. So you had just taken down energy, and we were hounding you on whether or not Rival could be consistent, I think is what our big topic was, right?
Yeah, pretty much. We went into there, and you guys made your predictions that we'd fall to Luminosity too. Wouldn't even be a contest, but
Yeah.
we came up with a surprise.
You really did. I mean, I think this year, I mean, we've talked a lot of storylines. I mean, whether it was on Retake or while I was on the desk for the SPL, it is just this year is just like it feels like the year of the new blood, and Rival has for sure felt like a big part of that. I mean, you guys, this. You guys have players who haven't exactly been, stars or powerhouses in years past, but now everything seems to be clicking for this team.
Yeah, I think it's just come down to the fact that we've stuck together for a long time. We've started to develop our own strategies rather than playing to the meta, as you can tell by what we brought out in the finals. And it's just a style that works for us now.
At this point, is it just like what crazy shit can we make Deathwalker play in solo? And I think we can make it work. I mean, when the chips are down, when your backs are to the wall, what do you pull out? Ares solo. Who does that? Like, that's not a thing, except you made it a thing. Like, that's like watching you guys play. I mean, everybody sees like the memes of like, oh, they were playing 4D chess, then we were playing checkers. Like that's what it feels like you guys are doing sometimes.
Just like to apologize to everybody in ranks at this point. The Ares solos, we're sorry.
So, what was the idea behind Ares solo? I mean, what was the synergy behind picking that for that game?
Well, there's a fair bit of thought behind it. Ares is fantastic when ahead, but probably one of the worst characters to have in your team when behind. And if you put him into the solo lane, he's guaranteed to be at least level with the rest of the game. So definitely can be effective as a frontliner and as an initiator rather than from the support role, where he's almost guaranteed to be a bit behind and a bit lagging behind in items. It doesn't actually lose too many matchups in the solo lane. It struggles a lot against Osiris, simply because Ares wants to get close to do damage, and Osiris just fights you if you get close, and Ares can't sustain through it. But then also pairing it with the Athena is what really makes it work, because Ares struggles for clear in the early game. Athena over there helps alleviate that pressure. And what's more, both of them starting bummers allows them to clear the jungle incredibly quickly, meaning that they don't really stand at a deficit to lose the buffs on the right-hand side.
All right, fair enough. So throughout this tournament, we saw Deathwalker play a couple of different Guardians in that solo role, and that's not something we've seen a lot of during Season 4. I mean, it's definitely been, a throwback to the soul lane is the warrior lane, but having seen these, a couple Guardians come through in that lane, do you think we'll start to see a return of the Guardians coming to the solo lane?
I think there's a possibility of it. The issue with that, though, would be 413 introduces more of a prevalence and a need to secure your own buffs and to invade onto the enemies, because the contestable farm is a bit less worthwhile.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to need to have that pressure in that solo lane, in that mid lane, and then that dual lane in order to secure your own farm and potentially invade onto theirs. Warriors give you that pressure. Guardians tend to not. Guardians are there to really stall out the game and make them a bit longer, which there is the possibility of seeing going into the mid-season update, is those longer games where Guardians do start to shine a bit more. It just comes down to, can you stomach losing a couple buffs in the early game? Can you alleviate that pressure with a couple of choice picks in that mid lane? If you can, Guardian solos are going to become a lot more prevalent. If you can't, we're still sticking with the Warriors and start to see a decline in those Guardian solos.
How big of a change do you think we'll see because of those new items coming out from the mid-season patch? I mean, there was a lot of new stuff going on with like magical items, so things that would synergize well with a Guardian solo. Do you think those are going to have any kind of impact on this decision in the solo lane?
I don't think any of the new items are going to be built on to these Guardian solos. More so, these changed magical defense items, like your Genjis and your Only Hunter's Garb.
Mm-hmm.
They might be built up a lot more because giving them that extra health just becomes a lot more attractive to them. The Void Stone as well, adding a lot more health to that makes it a more viable option in that solo lane. Because you have to build health and you have to build protections, but having to build just one sort of felt a bit weird, delaying your build and delaying your survivability a bit. Getting them both on a single item now that can really impact your team in a rotation really makes it a lot more of a choice pick.
Okay. All right. And, as a coach, we either tend to give too much credit to our coaches or not enough credit. And as a coach, how do you make adjustments between games? And we see your pretty face on stage right after every game, yelling at your players, and you kind of corralling them over to kind of talk strategy. How much do you change between games, like drafting, or like, hey, I saw this, we need to address this. We can try and counterpick with this and try to force them into that. How much of that goes on?
I'll take you through what I did between each of the games in the final set against Dignitas. After game 1, before game 2, I talked to them about their warding patterns, what they did when they shifted between left-hand side, right-hand side, a few of their rotations. Game 2, we talked about exploiting the Dignitas drafting style, and that's what really allowed us to pick into the Ares Athena combination, was just their predictability in their draft. And in between games 3 and 4, we calmed everybody down, made sure that we weren't overexcited, overzealous going into the next game. Just reset back to where it was between game 2 and 3. Similar thing after game 4. Just reset everybody's emotions, make sure everyone's calm and collected going into that final game.
So with Obey, with that set, how much planning went into there? How much prep did you guys do, watching film, watching what they picked and how they played?
It wasn't a lot of watching what they picked and what they played, because we've played against them quite a lot in scrims before the brackets came out. Mm-hmm. Once the brackets came out and we were on the same side of the bracket as them, we then switched over to Dignitas and Energy. But in that, before, we knew what they started to play. We knew what their drafting style was like. We knew what they were looking for, their rotations, their warding. So watching games of the SPL back wasn't really going to help us. What was going to help us is addressing our own core issues. And it was pointed out on Twitter numerous times when Hinterman's tier list came out that Kalas had a lot of supports banned against him. And it's because a lot of the EU teams felt that he had a very limited gold pool. Mm-hmm. What Obey didn't know, and what Dignitas and Energy did know, was that we were working on those 2 weeks at expanding Kalas' gold pool massively. So we can include gods like Geb, Xing Chen, really pick up that Ares as well, not just limited to the Fafnir and Athena. And for the first 3 games of that set, Obey still stuck to their guns and kept on trying to ban out Kalas, and it just didn't really work for them.
And it really felt like I praised Obey for their strategy over on the right-hand side of the map, giving like an Osiris to Maniac, and then putting Twig on like an Odin, and having like double warrior comp. But it really felt like they had been doing that so long that they kind of shot themselves in the foot when you guys targeted out. Because I mean, you guys essentially what it looked like you guys were doing with your first 2 bans is you were targeting 2 warriors that was essentially targeting both Twig and Maniac, and then for your secondary bans you were just targeting Prime, and that looked like it was a strategy that paid off in a big way.
Well, the duo, well, it's not the duo side; it's the solo side of the map is incredibly important. And if you allow them these high pressure jungler warrior combinations, you're not really going to have the success that you need to do in that side to secure your own buffs. The first game, we essentially felt them out just to see if they were going to bring out something unorthodox that we weren't expecting, or we really weren't used to seeing. When we saw that the Odin was still a prevalent pick for Captain Twig, that Maniac was really just going to lean heavily onto the Bellona after we banned out the Osiris, we knew that it was exploitable. We knew that Twig really doesn't have as strong a performance on gods outside of Odin, given that he's played it so much in the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I mean that's exactly what it looked like, and it was hard to see a team that like you put up on a pedestal as much as like Obey, like, oh, they're the best in the world, and then seeing them getting into these bad habits, it's like, all right, well, surely they have something else that they got prepared, because up until this point, in the online stages, it doesn't matter. You can't ban out an Odin because that lets too much get through. But then it just felt like they didn't have a backup plan. It was just really weird to see them stick to a strategy even after the point where it was being exploited in their face. And you guys just did a very good job about, like, all right, you want to do that? Here, let us guide you into what we want you to do with that instead and play right into our hand.
I think that they did have a backup plan. It might not have been practiced as much as they needed to. You could see that they really wanted to go for the Najar afterwards, stuff that could help set up in that mid lane. And there's a really big problem with Najar and the fact that it paints a massive target onto the mid laner's back, because you pick the Najar, you then pick a Scylla or Ra or a Toth, something that can really combo well with the Najar. The second somebody goes up into the air, everyone just dives onto that mage more so than they would do if you had somebody like an Odin or a Camazotz in the jungle or even a Raven, because it's just an instant guaranteed kill if you don't do so.
Were you surprised that you didn't see Pretty Prime kind of grab the Morrigan and like kind of lean on that based on like his past performances with that god?
We banned it out the first 2 games. The third game we let it through because we realized that we could do a bit more target bans in that third game. And I told them to be careful, watch out where Pretty Prime is pretty much at all times, and we just put a lot more pressure onto him than usual. If you watch the games back from the Masters LAN and then going into the fall split, going to the summer split against them, we didn't really put a lot of pressure onto Pretty Prime. We just allowed him to farm up a bit on these risky picks in the mid lane. That changed into the summer finals at Valencia. We put a lot of pressure onto him, made sure he was incredibly uncomfortable, so that these high-risk picks just didn't work out for him.
Yeah, and you guys, it was funny. As I was watching and, I was looking at, I forget which game it was. I want to say it was either 3 or 4, and, Obey was picking up a pretty nice squad, and then I was like, oh, this is going to be a Nox here. And the very next thing happened was you guys banning away the Nox from Pretty Prime, and I was like, this rival squad's done their homework. They know what they need to do here, because like it was very obvious kind of like what Obey was trying to do. And I mean, I guess that was just really the theme. You guys showed up when you needed to. There were a lot of questions on you guys. I mean, the biggest thing surrounding the rival name right now is just like the roller coaster of inconsistencies. And we talked about it on our show, and Major was just like, as you guys had the little brief period of inconsistency, but you had the inconsistency going into the LAN. So we all felt like, all right, now you're going to have consistency because you got that out of your system now. So you guys were probably going to do all right. And lo and behold, you guys did amazingly. And it's just really good to see the squad having stuck together and like come into their own. And EU is just really fun to watch right now.
Yeah, I can agree to that. EU, very methodical. They understand the game to an extremely high level. And to go back to that Nox ban that we did in, I think it was game number 4, when we get to the banning phase and we see what they've drafted, everybody has an idea in their head of what they don't want to see. And everybody comes up with a suggestion. And the second that they had those 3 gods, the second we got into the next banning phase, about 5 of us said Nox straight away.
Yeah. You don't want to give. There's so many things. Like, I don't know. My favorite part about watching you guys was like the drafting phase. I feel like, especially when you get to the LAN environments, a lot of your games are won and lost in those pick ban phases, and it just really felt like you kind of got the better of, Obey in those pick ban phases, and they just didn't really have an answer for you.
And that's really the problem with sticking to your guts and sticking to a tier list and sticking to a plan when it doesn't work the first time. And as I said, they really stuck to focus banning out Kalas, and then in the 4th game, they switched it out to target banning Ice by the time it was too late.
Right.
They really didn't adapt as quickly as I thought that they would, and to me, that's what made the game, what made the set go to 4 games rather than 5.
Yeah, I think I'd have to agree. I think it's apparent to everybody as Obey was just, they had that team comp that they wanted, and they had been getting away with it. But then you guys were target banning it out, and they didn't have a practiced enough fallback strategy, and you guys just kind of took advantage of that. I mean, we keep saying that in a bunch of different ways here, but I mean, at the end of the day, from like a game IQ standpoint, you guys absolutely demolished Obey on that end, and I feel like that for people watching the SPL, that's a very important thing to note, and it's why we keep harping on it, because that your game IQ is so important at these levels, and the fact that you can exploit a team strategy and set up a very good chance of victory in just the pick ban stages, and you can throw a team completely off their game just by banning away 2 gods right off the bat. And that's what you guys did. You guys targeted out Twig, and you're not going to stop Maniac. You can only kind of really hope to contain them, but then once you target out their strategy on the solo side, you can really contain them. And it just felt like Maniac kind of didn't play up to his grand standards from like at least the last LAN, where he was just bopping people left and right on his Osiris.
And that's sort of why we banned it away from him consistently. I think we banned it all 4 games, maybe even left it open for the time of the wheel first pick, was because he just performs so much better on the Osiris than he does those other gods. And I've always maintained that drafting doesn't win you the game outright, but it gives you that massive leg up to go into the game to potentially then win it. Any draft that you have can win. You just put yourself at a disadvantage by losing it.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. And I mean, as I'll say it again, you guys showed how much that pick and ban strategy, that pick ban phase can really affect a game. And I know we kind of talked about, doing your homework, and when you figured out you were going to be up against, the Obey side of the map, did you do any homework against like the teams like did you do any homework for like Space Station, or did you feel pretty comfortable that you were going to be able to come in and kind of not have to focus as much on what they were doing?
We pretty much knew what Space Station we're going to be drafting, because it was throughout the split. They stuck to what they did at the Gauntlet and then subsequently at Masters, and we beat them at Gauntlet very comfortably with that same style of picks and bans that they had. We just felt like it was going to be not super easy, but it was going to be incredibly difficult for us to lose in that situation when they were still sticking to their same guns that didn't work against us the first time.
Going up against Space Station, who on that squad were you looking to like either target or kind of exploit going into that game? I mean, easy thoughts would probably be, you've got the rookie and Fine OK. But then, I mean, you've also got Andy in the mid, who's not exactly, he's been comfortable in the mid lane, but he's not a true mid laner still, I would say. But I mean, like it's an NA squad, so they're all kind of, have the stigma of being, less than EU. I mean, even if that's not true, but like going into that game, was there a certain player that you were like, we can exploit what they're going to be playing?
At the Gauntlet LAN, we decided to target out Andedster, specifically as Ra, because that was pretty much the only god he could play at that time to a high enough level. But going into this LAN, we switched it to Homie FA. Watching back on their game, a couple of their games, Homie FA just ran the game for them, especially on his Nemesis, which we banned out both games against them. So we just decided to target away that Nemesis and put as much pressure on him as possible with these high-pressure jungle and solo lane combinations, and it worked out.
Yeah, sure did. You guys beat the snot out of Space Station in a very convincing manner. When it comes to the NA-EU gap, from what I'm hearing, it just really sounds like NA's not adapting. You said you played against Space Station earlier in the year, and they are still having the same, pick ban strategy. They're still playing the same gods. They haven't changed or evolved any from where they were, a couple months ago. Would you say that's the biggest weakness of NA right now? It's just the lack of, adaptability?
I think it's pretty much their picks and bans, as well as their lack of objective control. As I said before, with the Space Station set, we pretty much did the exact same strategy, just switched up who we were targeting, and they drafted exactly how we thought they would draft. And then going into the games, we were able to get a free Gold Fury, a free Portal Demon, because we kept an eye on their rotations, their backs, their warding patterns, and were able to exploit those fully during the game, rather than having to go outside of the game, look at them there and go, oh, at 12 minutes 30, we can do a Portal Demon because they don't ward there at 12 minutes 30. We just did it in-game because we were so used to adapting on the fly and exploiting those backs and exploiting those irregular wardings. And they just need to start improving on that, in my opinion, and going back to the drawing board, having a look at the drafts, what makes their gods the prime pick in that scenario, rather than what makes their gods the prime pick for themselves in that scenario. There's a big difference between what the general tier list is and what your specific tier list is, and learning the difference between those two and making sure that you stick to your specific tier list is absolutely imperative at a high level play.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head. I think NA lacks in that pick ban phase. I mean, just watching, Luminosity versus Obey, when they tried to ban out a Milzy as a support player, and was like, I don't think you know what you're doing right now. Like, why are you targeting a Milzy with all these bans? He's got a big enough god pool where none of that's really gonna matter, and you're just letting Obey run roughshod with whatever the hell they want. And watching that was just really strange. I mean, and we've seen time and time again where Luminosity does this, and they're like, it just leaves you scratching your head like, what are they thinking? Like, what is their strategy here? And you can't find a logical answer to that question. And
I think one of the big things in that set was the fact that they did try to ban out a Milzy. Out of every support in the SPL, I firmly believe that he has the most expansive god pool. Maybe Trix Tank has a similar expansion in that god pool as well, but Milzy is definitely up there. So to try and ban him out of his most comfortable picks can work out, but you need to then draft accordingly.
Mm-hmm.
And just banning away what you think strong and then picking your own stuff rather than picking something that's good for you and good against what you think they're going to draft really just speaks to me that those two bans might as well have just been Anubis and Hades.
Hey, don't sleep on the Anubis at land, man. You never know. You never know
Team
when it's
AI.
going to come back up. All right. We saw AMC at this land, right?
Oh, yeah. Trifecta did extremely well.
Yeah, so next up, we got to see the Anubis do well. That's they go hand in hand right now, right? They're the two meme picks.
Yeah. I think Anubis Jungle is going to have very good success in 4.13.
I think I agree. Those new magical items, that new Fatalis effect, is just going to be It's gonna be really good on that Anubis.
You can just imagine the demonic Anubis skin in its final form, just slamming the ground, chasing after you with a Fatalis now.
It's gonna happen, and I'm gonna do it in a casual game, but please don't do that in my ranked game. Just please, it's not good. All right, so I think that's it for my questions. So this is where I give you our soapbox to stand on. Anything you want to say, any shout outs you want to give, the floor is yours.
First of all, I'd shout outs to Team Rival, amazing sponsor, probably the best one we have or ever gonna have. Shout outs to the team for performing extremely well at LAN. Shout outs to the fans as well. They were absolutely unreal. Big shout outs as well to X Gamer. Really helped us out during the LAN, even sponsored bringing over a camera guy for us, and it just wouldn't have been the same trip without them.
All right. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys kind of do the rest of the year. I mean, this is the point where things really start to actually matter now. We're getting into that, that run of the year where everything's kind of leading up towards that, that chance at Worlds to win the championship. And I think it's going to be an interesting ride with Rival, Obey, Energy, and Dig all kind of being at the top of EU, and then seeing if NA can actually get their shit together going into this last part of the year. And
I think they will. We saw signs of life from them, actually, with the Trifecta vs. Energy set. If Trifecta just be a little bit more patient in that late game or be a bit more aggressive in that early game, they win that game too.
Yeah, it was definitely a good thing to see Trifecta perform that well, but it's sad to see Trifecta perform that well because Energy is just one of those teams where they're just like not performing right now. But I mean, that's a whole other video we could do with Energy and all of that. But
we could talk for hours on that.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see if NA. I mean, we're looking at Lumi. I mean, my personal dark horse, I still want to see if they can kind of keep up, is Noble. I love Wowie. Wubbin's been playing like he has a brain with positioning and everything. Like, he's always been mechanically good, but now he's playing like, oh, I cannot be dumb with where I'm positioned on the map. That's cool. And he's been playing really well. And then you got MLC kind of returning to his early form with being a top tier mid laner. And then Aquarius he's learning. He is one of those guys I want to watch out for, and then Skeleton fits into that squad really well. So Noble, I really want them to succeed in NA, and I think it'll be interesting to watch them kind of grow. And just like it's been very interesting watching you guys and Rival grow. So good luck the rest of the year, and I'll see you at Worlds, man.
Yeah, I'll see you at Worlds. Thank you so much, and hopefully we can put on a show during the online phase as well.
Oh, I'm sure you will. I mean, it's Fafnir's gonna get let through at least once, and Collis is just gonna go. He's gonna build Gym of ISO and Stone of Binding and just get that free frenzy pop all the time. God. It's gonna happen. I can see it in my head now. And then he's just gonna build pure damage Faf and then throw a Swiftwing in there. I can see it now. I'm seeing the future. All right, but thanks for joining us, Alpha.